your own life became perfect tomorrow in like everything, but nothing actually changed for people of the same race, of the same economic status, of the same gender, the same sexuality, basically the same identity. Would you still call that liberation? Let's get right into it.
Warning, listening to us
might radicalize you.
Hi everyone. Welcome back to season 3 of this podcast. Just because we took a bit of a break, but we are back, and hopefully, we are going to have better conversations, more insightful conversations than we even did in the past seasons. And as always, it's me, Gil, and my gorgeous co-host, Kai. Hi, Kai. How you
Hi,
doing?
Gail. I'm doing okay. How are you?
Mm, I'm as good as I can be. But we'll get into that later.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. What's going on in the world around you?
Well, I went on a writing retreat in Sri Lanka at the end of June, which explained our absence as well. I got to explore Sri Lanka a bit for about 10-ish days, and I know you went on vacation as well, right?
Yeah, that was hectic. I was sexually harassed,
Oh my God, what the
and
fuck?
yeah, so I went on a vacation to Marrakech in Morocco, and
Uh-huh.
I definitely do not recommend for someone of my skin tone. I don't recommend if you're a black woman. I would definitely not recommend solo travel if you're a black woman. I heard very distasteful phrases. There was a lot of catcalling. There was a lot. There was some unnecessary touching, men touching me. A teenage boy actually grabbed my butt at some point,
What?
and yeah, it was an experience.
Oh my
So at
God.
some point, my best friend had to be like a bodyguard, sort of. So whenever we were going out, I would get anxious, and she always was trying to make sure that I'm in front of her so that she can see if something was happening. But yeah, I left Ghana, so I guess that's a plus, I guess. But for no reason at all, I will never step foot in Morocco because I don't think it's a space that's safe for someone who looks like me. And yeah.
I am so sorry that happened. I mean, to be
Thank
honest, it
you.
was one of the main reasons why my partner decided to, well, why I asked my partner to go with me to Sri Lanka because I did not feel safe
Mm,
as a solo female traveler. So,
yeah.
yeah, I was just like, can you go with me and be my bodyguard? And it honestly, it sucks that women have to navigate the world like that. But
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, it's just how the world is right now, which is why we speak up, which is why we have a podcast like this in order to,
Yeah.
dismantle patriarchy and fucking stop men from harassing women who are just trying to live.
Right. Right. Because I know I've been moving between should I do like a story time for TikTok, and
Mm.
then after I came back I've also seen a couple of videos of other black women who went there and they were harassed, and under their comments I see a lot of people saying, well, as a black woman, of all the places you choose to go to, why would you go to Morocco? And I see a little bit of victim blaming in there.
Yeah.
And even though I have done a lot of work to get to a point where I feel like I can acknowledge that it's not my fault, but I also don't want to even put myself out there that much to see the comments that people will probably write under my
Uh-huh.
post, because I don't think right now I'm in the best shape mentally to also get piled on. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to chalk it to an L. Like I'll
I'm
move on with my
so
life. Maybe
sorry.
someday I'll talk about it to help someone else, but I don't think I'm ready to make like a whole video about it yet. Yeah.
I am so sorry that happened, Gail. Men really honestly suck.
Extremely, extremely across the
Mm,
world, different
mhm.
races, different religions, and anyway, back to our topic for today. So I've been seeing a lot of conversations about, personal liberation and collective liberation. I've also seen and heard some feminists who say um their feminism centers fully on their lived experience. They don't care about what does not affect them.
Mhm.
So you might see a white feminist not advocating for things that are very intersectional, for for black women, for women who don't look like them. And you might also come across some African feminists whose feminisms are very like rooted in the things I experience in Africa. If it's not something that affects African women, I don't care. I'm not going to like, do anything about it. I'm not going to contribute anything to it because at the end of the day, it's not my cup of tea.
Mhm.
So that's why I brought up this conversation for us to have today. Whether true liberation can actually happen for us as women and for all marginalized groups if it's not collective, but people focus on personal liberation only. So, my first question for you, Kat, is can our personal choices as feminists ever be completely free, especially under patriarchy, under religion, and capitalism? Can we ever get to a point where you can say that this personal choice you made was not influenced at all by any of the tenets of patriarchy?
I think based on the conversations that we have had many, many times before, the answer is pretty obvious that every decision, every choice that we make is deeply rooted in patriarchy in one way or another. Either it's pro patriarchy or it's anti patriarchy, right? So, for example, the conversation that we were having a while back about how no matter how we dress, we are
Yeah.
either catering to the patriarchy, catering to the male gaze, or catering against the male gaze. At the end of the day, it is still rooted in patriarchy because
Yeah.
unfortunately, we were brought up in a patriarchal society and we were conditioned and we were spoon fed into believing patriarchal ideas and misogyny and sexism and racism, capitalism. So when we grow up, either we live to serve the system, either we center men, or we decenter men, which is also, to me personally, a reaction to the patriarchy, right? So decentering men is a reaction to patriarchy. It is not a decision that exists in a vacuum because it
Yeah.
was influenced by patriarchy. It's
Patriarchy.
kind of like um it's kind of like either you grow up to like the system, to serve the system, or you grow up to work against the system, to
Against the
dismantle the
system.
system. Yeah, but at the end of the day, it is caused by the system. If the system had not existed in the first place, there would be no pro or against the system. So I do think that all our choices, whether we become a feminist, whether we become a conservative woman who does not want the right to vote, it is still influenced by patriarchy, by religion, and by capitalism.
So is it safe to say that at the end of the day, we are all, whether consciously or unconsciously, working within the system? Because sometimes I see arguments where people call like pick me's and patriarchal princesses as people who are trying to manipulate or navigate the system to their benefit while still trying to claim a false sense of resisting, but they're rather conforming, and it kind of puts like a barrier, like a separation barrier against those who are fighting, who are actively fighting against the system, and those who are working within the system. But from what you say, so can I safely say that at the end of the day, we are all working within the system?
I agree because, for example, when you talk about capitalism, right, people would say, oh, if you're so against capitalism, then why do you have a smartphone? Then why do you go to work? Why do you have your corporate job? But the truth of the matter is, we try to dismantle capitalism, but the system, we live under the system. So it's not like we can just say, oh, I'm gonna go live off the grid. I'm not gonna use a smartphone. I'm not gonna have a job because we can't, right? We have to pay bills. We hate the system, but we do have to pay bills. But we do need our smartphone to survive. But we do need
Yeah.
the internet. We do need to do all of that because, unfortunately, again, the system is everywhere. We work to dismantle it so that we can be free from it. But because we are not the ones in position of power, we cannot live outside of the system.
I love that. I think it's also put a lot of things into perspective for me, because I used to be in that group of people where it's like, I think at some point I realized my feminism was starting to gear towards I'm a better feminist than you feminism, kind of. So I was at a point where it feels like I was trying to hold other women accountable. I was trying to hold patriarchal women accountable. I was trying to hold empowered women accountable. And in my head, it felt like, oh, as long as I'm actively working on, dismantling the patriarchy, smashing the patriarchy, and then I am not working within the system. At some point, I definitely was thinking like that. I thought it's just all those other people who are not actively doing anything to contribute are the only ones who are working within the system. So I love this perspective.
I like to think of it as, let's say, a metaphor because I'm a visual learner. I like to imagine it as patriarchy and capitalism as like this dome, this glass dome that's covered the entire world, that's covered the entire country or city. And we can't get out of it until we break the dome. But unfortunately, right now we are living under that dome. So we might hate it.
Yeah.
We might find a way to try to break it. We might try to, I don't know, in the middle of the night, we find a hammer and we smash it bit by bit. But at the end of the day, we are still doing it under the cover of the dome. So until we can smash that glass dome, we are still living under it. We still have to operate within the system so that we can dismantle the system.
I love that. I love that. So it takes me back to our next question. So this question actually came up for me because I've seen a couple of conversations. We've spoken about this before. Um, Heterosexual sex being seen as something that is inherently demeaning to women. I'm still seeing a lot of conversations going on about that, and some people try to use the same logic for other things in the feminist spaces, where they think that if a certain activity is seen as dehumanizing and as a personal choice they opt out, then for them they feel liberated. So for instance, again back to heterosexual sex, so someone might be straight, however, because they've because of the violence that is usually meted out to straight women in the heterosexual relationships they are in, this person has made a decision that I am going to opt out of heterosexual relationships. I will not engage sexually with men, even though I'm attracted to men, and that is what gives me sexual pleasure. I am just going to make the decision not to engage with men at all. And then they think of it as, I'm a better feminist because
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm not engaging with men. It means I'm not engaging with the system that is men. Does this choice actually truly equal liberation? Opting out, does it equal liberation?
I don't think so, because when we talk about oppression, when we talk about the system, it is systematic, right? So we can opt out of it, but unless again we actively work to dismantle the system still exists. Yeah, it no longer affects us, but it will somehow find a way to come back. So this reminds me of this quote, this poem called "First They Came For." Have you heard of it?
No.
So I'm gonna read this quote, this poem. First, they came for the
Okay.
immigrants, and I did not speak out because I was not an immigrant. Then they came for the refugees, and I did not speak out because I was not a refugee. Then they came for the women, and I did not speak out because I was not a woman. Then they came for the descendants, and I did not speak out because I was not a descendant. Then they came for the trans people, and I did not speak out because I was not trans. Then they came for the people of color, and I did not speak out because I was not a person of color. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. So there are different variations of that. Like in some versions, they said first they came for the communists, and I didn't speak out because I was not a communist, unionist, trade unionist, all of that. But the point of the poem is that first they would come for the marginalized people, the people who are most vulnerable, right? So if we are looking right now in the US context, it would be immigrants, it would be trans people. But if we don't speak out against that right now, it's going to cause a cascading effect where one day it will come to us. So we might think that we're safe now just because we're not one of those vulnerable people. But
People.
oppression, fascism, the system like that, like patriarchy, and also capitalism, they will go through people rank by rank to the point where we become the vulnerable group now. And by the time that happens, there will be no one left to speak for us, which is why, for example, when Roe v. Wade was overturned, some people would be like, oh, well, why do you care? It's the US. There's still abortion law in your country. Abortion is
Yeah.
still legalized in your
Yeah.
country. So why do you care? But the problem is, there's a saying, we're not free unless all of us are free. So we
Are
can
free.
say, okay, it's just the US. It's US abortion laws. Why do I care? I live in Cambodia. But the thing is, what the US is doing is setting a precedent so that people can see that, oh, you can take away women's rights and no one's going to say anything about it. Then leaders who are misogynistic, who are patriarchal, countries that are patriarchal, they look at that as an example and they say, okay, then I can apply that same logic to my country and I can criminalize abortion in my country too, and no one will speak up about it. And then it causes this cascading effect until no woman has rights anymore.
Yeah, yeah. That reminds me, bringing it to my local context. So, for the past couple of years, 2 years or something, and especially this year, the the government is trying to pass an anti a family values law,
Mm-hmm.
but most of the things in it is anti-LGBTQI. So they are basically going for all queer people. They are going for everything that is not heteronormative. They are going for everything that they say is not traditional or part of our culture, sort of. And when these conversations started on social media, a lot of people were not adding their voices. A lot of people, some of them were even saying things like, "Oh, if you are not gay, why do you care?
Mm-hmm.
If you are not trans, why do you care? If you are not why do you care?" So there was a lot of that conversation, and this year, the same man who was the proponent of this family values law is bringing up other laws. One is called the Cyber Security Act, and when the tech bros and the tech girlies did the breakdown, there are so many human rights infringements. There are so many privacy infringements, And then the rest of us, the social advocates, we came up and said, we literally said it, that if this person gets away with one thing, if this person gets away with oppressing one group, it is not going to stop there. They will
Yeah.
start coming for every single body. Because now this same person is also part of a group of people in Africa who are trying to pass a law. And if this law is passed between the African countries and is upheld, it's going to affect contraception, it's going to affect abortion, it's going to affect so many things. But now it looks like it's very geared again towards the marginalized, which is women, which is children, and people with different gender identities and sexual identities. So I definitely agree with you. It never stops at where they start. So my favorite thing to always say is, it can always be you. You would think
Yeah.
that, oh, this thing is so far removed from me. It's not something that can happen to me because of da 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 da. And then the next thing you know, it's at your doorstep. It's in your backyard. So yeah, I definitely agree with you.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that people sometimes they feel too comfortable when they're not in the marginalized group and they think that they're safe. But unless you're in a position of power, unless you're a billionaire, unless you are Netanyahu or Donald Trump, you're not safe, honestly. So the system will find a way to get to you if you don't protect other people. And
Always.
even if that wasn't to happen, even if you would be safe, how can you be a human by not caring about other human, right? How can you say that you're human and just think that, oh, I don't care about other people as long as I'm safe, as long as my ass is safe. I don't care what happens to them. I don't care if children are being dragged into concentration camps by ICE and separated from their family. It doesn't matter to me because it's not my kid. How can you call yourself a human at that point, you know?
I mean, I think for them, for people like that, at the end of the day, it's as long as they still sleep well, as long as it's not directly affecting them, they don't want to think about it. So
Yeah.
yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's kind of like
uh
how, for example, we have allowed Israel to commit genocide in Gaza, right? Commit genocide
yeah.
against the Palestinians, and we watched that and we allowed that to happen. So now what are they doing? They're doing the same in Lebanon. So you think that it won't affect you, but what happens when Israel wants your country? Because by that point they will already have been allowed to do this multiple times over. No one's stopping them. So what happens when Israel wants your country, when suddenly they're like, oh, Cambodia has been promised to Israel 3,000 years ago, then what are we gonna do, right? That's the thing.
Oh, it just reminds me. I don't know if this is fake or like it's actual news, so don't take my word for it. But I saw something on X a couple of days ago where it said Israel is trying to build a twin city here in Ghana, and people were livid. A lot of people were livid under the post. Because we all know how it starts. We all
Yeah.
know how it fucking starts. And our leaders are so corrupt, so self-absorbed that it's not even that they don't see the signs. They just don't care, because at the end of the day, if shit hits the fan, they can fly their private jets into other countries that are more stabilized and leave the rest of us here to rot.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So,
That's how it happens.
hectic. Anyway, away from Israel and their genocide and all the rots that exist with them, do you think lived experience and personal choices alone can lead to collective liberation? So, our choices that we are making as individuals. So, let's say, oh my god, my brain just went. I could not give an example of a choice, but you get get me. So please save me and answer my question.
So I do feel like lived experiences and personal choices are important, right? Because it's part of intersectional feminism. So it's not just that my lived experience is more important than yours. It's about me contributing my lived experience and asking you to contribute your lived experience in order to form a collective movement.
Yeah.
It's not about valuing or honoring one person's lived experience more, or one group's lived experience more than the other. So for example, if you are a white woman, your lived experience matters, yes, but it also matters collectively if you also listen to other people like women of color, trans women, women with disabilities, gender diverse people, because we all have different lived experiences. We do not grow up the same way. Like, my girlhood is not the same as a woman with disabilities girlhood, right? Or my girlhood is not the same as a trans woman's girlhood, because we all go through different things. So it's
Yeah.
very important that we listen to each other, that we contribute in order to create intersectional feminism, in order to contribute to collective liberation. And for me, from my understanding of this question, personal choices would be like, what do you do with your time in order to contribute to the collective liberation? So are
Yeah.
you gonna decenter men? Are you gonna talk about it? Are you gonna speak up against the men in your life who are misogynistic? Or are you gonna stay quiet? Are you gonna date a MAGA? Are you gonna marry a MAGA and say that I don't want the right to vote anymore? So I do think that personal choices matter, but it needs to feed into a collective movement as well.
Okay. Okay. I love that. So I've had this conversation a couple of times about feminist literature, where, like, for us people in Africa, a lot of times it's very hard to find African feminist literature. So a lot of the ones I tend to come across are written by people in different parts of the world. Some of them are still in the global south, but even within the context of global south, we do not all have the same experiences. So I've had conversations with some people where they say they don't read feminist literature because they think it's a lived experience of people who do not have their lived experience. So they don't think there's anything in there that they can take and kind of apply to their life. And I feel like I get them to some extent, but it's it also takes me back to people whose feminism wants to be solely dependent on their lived experience and what they see. Because also at the end of the day, okay, what about all the oppressed women in those
Yeah.
countries? And I personally, I've read a couple of books. So when I started reading hood feminism, it felt very American centric. It felt very African American centric. But I decided not to put the book down, because the more I was reading, the more I was picking up a couple of things that I realized, oh, I'm already doing these things,
Yeah.
or I already think this way. So I think at the end of the day, we are feminists. We are all feminists, irrespective of your race, irrespective of your gender identity and all that. I know intersectionally there is a difference, but I say a lot of our experiences as women are similar, irrespective of where you come from, irrespective of, your class and whatever. So yeah, what do you have to add? I think sometimes I try to convince them that they can get more out of it than just thinking that it's, but yeah, it's always been like this whole conversation thing. Please jump in now.
I do think that reading is important, especially in the age of anti-intellectualism, especially in an age where they're trying to dumb us down with AI and telling us not to read, to think for ourselves. So it's always important to read extensively, read books by other feminists, no matter where they're from, because getting different perspectives is very important and it broadens your horizon, right? For example, I read this book. It's fiction. It's called A Woman Is No Man. And let me check who that is from. I think I'm gonna butcher their name, but it is by Etaf Rum. I hope I did not butcher her name, but anyway, she is Palestinian American, and the book is centered around a Palestinian woman in Palestine who was married off into this Palestinian American man, and then she experienced abuse. So it sounds very Palestinian American focused. However, the experience of domestic violence, of gender based violence, it is quite universal in a way.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
can kind of draw parallel between what happens there and what happens in your context. But at the end of the day, I am someone who believes that I would like to broaden my horizon as much as possible and to be a smart person in the room where when people have conversations about different like geopolitics or about oppression in different countries, I would like to be able to contribute to the conversation and not just be like, oh, I don't care because it's not about my country, it's not about my people, it's not about people who look like me. Because when you say that, it sounds a little bit like I only care about people who look like me and their experiences. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I perfectly understand you. That's so I also usually try to come from that angle as well. And yeah, I don't think I've convinced any of them yet, but we will see. So to wrap up our conversation, what does liberation look to you, Kat? At what point could you maybe say, yeah, women's liberation, marginalized groups liberation? What does it look to you?
That is a very broad question. What does liberation
I
look like to you,
know.
Gail?
No, you, you, you answer first.
I don't know. I
I
feel
don't,
like
I don't know.
liberation.
I don't think,
Go on.
I don't think I've really thought of mine actually. So you go.
I do feel like liberation to me is about breaking free from the system. And the system would also include like patriarchy, capitalism. So breaking free from the system is in dismantling the system, no longer living under patriarchy, no longer living under capitalism, no longer being ruled by like 8 billionaires while they're hoarding wealth and the rest of us are struggling living paycheck to paycheck. It's about not having to fear for our lives when we go out on the street as a woman. It's about having bodily autonomy. It's about being free, essentially, being free to be whoever we are, being free to live a life without fear of anything, without fear of violence, without fear of judgment, without fear of stigmas or shame. It's it's a lot, right? So I guess if we have to put it in like a short and sweet sentence, I would say liberation to me is about the dismantle of the system, the dismantle of patriarchy and capitalism.
Okay, I'm just going to jump on yours and say I agree with Kat. Okay, everyone, I agree with Kat. That's also my idea of liberation. So, but you see how everything you put out was still also not like individualized. It was not, there was nothing like, I get to marry anybody I want, or I get to, like, those very personalized things. It's, you still thought of it in a very like collective way. And I wish a lot of us will come from that angle more. I know there's nuance of people who do not have the bandwidth to think about people beyond themselves. I get that. But I think if you have the faculties, if you have the facilities, if you have the privilege of being in a position where you can think beyond yourself, where you can think of, the collective as in all marginalized group, not just about yourself. I definitely think you should make use of it. So, just to wrap up this conversation, my first question that we began with is something we can all try to sit with every now and then. That if you woke up tomorrow and your own life was perfect, but nothing has changed for all the other people around you who are of the same sexual identity, the same gender identity, the same race, and everything, they have a lot of things in common with you, but only your life is suddenly perfect. Will you still sit and say that, yay, I'm liberated, this is liberation for us? Will you? If
Um,
no, then yeah, you
I want
go.
to add a little bit when you were talking about the individualistic of it. It reminds me of how some people say that, oh, you should teach women how to protect themselves from sexual assault by doing XYZ, right? And then, yeah, it might protect the person from being assaulted, but it also means that you're pushing the assault to someone else who is not as careful. So you're saying that I'm protecting myself. I learn how to defend myself. I learn how to not put myself in a vulnerable position. But someone else will get assaulted because the assailant
Yeah,
will not, just because they don't pick you, doesn't mean that they won't pick anyone else at all.
the
So it's
next
more like
person.
I'm saving my skin. I'm protecting myself and I don't care if it happens to another woman.
Okay, so on this same trajectory, will a collective action be this person learns how to defend themselves and maybe starts a group where they teach other women how to defend themselves and also encourages other people that they can join this group? Does that count as a collective act
I actually I feel a little bit iffy about the idea of saying that the solution is about
of
teaching women
defending?
to defend
Yeah,
themselves rather than
yeah.
placing the blame and responsibility on the perpetrator instead. I mean, yeah, we can form a group, but it's not like we're gonna have, for example, Cambodia has 17 million people. We're not gonna get all like, what's my math,
True.
eight, like almost 8 million people to join this group to learn
This group.
self-defense, right? Someone's
Yeah.
gonna fall through the crack. What about a woman with a mental illness who cannot join this group? Does that mean that because she's vulnerable, it's okay for her to be assaulted? So the solution here, the collective solution, is to stop rape culture, is to teach men to be better, is to make sure that there is a system in place to protect the survivors and to protect the victims and for men to be held accountable for it.
I love that. I think this latter part of the conversation also gives me an idea for another thing we can talk on a different episode. But yes, I think we are wrapping up now. Do you have any final words for our listeners, new and old?
I would just like to say that collectively we are stronger and individually we can survive, maybe for now, for tomorrow, for the day after, but the system will come for us if we don't dismantle it. If we think that we can't opt out of oppression, we can try to, even
Yeah.
if we go live off the grid, the system is still there. It's still going to harm someone. And how can we say that we're human if we allow injustice to happen to other people and say that we don't care about it?
Yeah, yeah. What Kat said. Okay, what she said. And as always, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. We are back and hopefully we are able to go back and stick with our 1 week episode. Yeah, our weekly episodes. and uploads. So stay tuned because we have more exciting things coming up. And as always, you can follow us on all social media platforms as Unholy Feminists. You can listen to us on any and all podcast apps and websites. It does not matter. And please also subscribe to our YouTube channel and like the videos if you want, if you enjoy them. I know you do because you watch them. So like them. Okay. And thank you. We will catch you in our next episode. Bye.